Okay, everybody, I think we should start the session now. Everybody's on mute at the moment, but welcome to today's Safran Integrator webinar called Streamlining Integrated Project Planning with Safran and SAP. My name is Richard Wood, and I'll be making sure the webinar goes smoothly today. So before we get started, I've just got a few housekeeping items. If you have any technical difficulties, please email me at richard.wood@safran.com, richard.wood@safran.com, and we can try and sort you out during the call. I notice on the chat that a couple of people are having trouble accessing the seminar, the webinar, so please send me an email at that address and we can sort you out during the call. We will be muting the audience. You're all muted at the moment during the presentation because we want to get a nice clear recording to share with you after the event, and we'll make that available to you at the beginning of next week. We will also be holding a Q&A session at the end of the workshop, so please send in your questions to us at any time, but use the chat function in your GoToMeeting console, and then we can collect them and answer them together at the end. And so to today's webinar. We will be looking at the work we've been doing to integrate Safran with SAP, and Matthias Eichel will show us the SAP integrator itself. Safran have employed Vesta partners to develop our SAP integrator because Vesta are experts in SAP and in integrating with planning systems, and Matthias is representing Vesta for us today. He has over 20 years of SAP consulting experience and has been integrating SAP with external planning tools since 2003. Lars Eliasson is CEO of Safran, and he also has 20 years of experience in technology and software companies in the oil and gas industry. And Lars will explore the market and business trends that have led us at Safran to realize the importance of such an integrator to streamlining the complete end-to-end business process. This process goes from strategic selection of the right projects for maximum investment impact right through to their flawless execution. And so let me hand over to Lars to show how this close collaboration between SAP and Safran delivers this end-to-end process.
Hello everyone, I'm Lars Eliasson, the CEO of Safran. We're excited to have so many of you here today. We have a number of attendees from companies like Statoil, ConocoPhillips, Wintershall, Subsea 7, and quite a few more. Today we're going to look at some of the broader challenges the market is facing and how we can address these from a project portfolio management and project execution perspective by integrating Safran and SAP. Then Matthias will go into a product demo and actually show you how the Safran integrator for SAP works. So looking at some of the big picture perspectives in the oil and gas industry that we're seeing at the moment, if you look at a study, recent study from International Energy Agency, the world's growing energy needs is not stopping. There's a significant number of investment dollars to be invested into the oil and gas industry in the period until 2035. At the same time, as many of you know and see in your own companies, project performance is still a challenge, and Accenture recently published a study stating that only 30% of projects are being delivered on budget and only 15% of projects are on time, leaving quite a bit of room for improvement. And as you all know, the oil price has fallen by nearly 60% since last year, and that leaves a number of the oil and gas producing projects in the world not economical at the current price points. So in tough times like these, we have a great opportunity to make improvements and come out of the downturn faster and stronger. Now let's see how we can translate this to the project and portfolio area that most of us work in. We have a common goal of elevating project and portfolio confidence, and there's really two themes that we want to talk about today. The first theme is to select projects and select them strategically, and the second theme is to execute projects and execute them flawlessly. These are two areas that SAP and Safran both can impact, and through the integration that we've developed and we're going to talk about today, we have the opportunity to really make an impact on that. So more specifically, let's talk about selection of projects. most companies today, all companies, owner-operators, have a process for selecting projects for execution. There's typically a funnel approach, like you see on the screen here, where projects are evaluated from a qualitative and quantitative perspective. And factors such as performance, risk, corporate goals, political, legal, other factors are taken into account to select the projects that are going to go into the portfolio. In a bit more detail, many companies have a couple of different processes that they look at to select the projects. You have a quantitative process where you look at factors such as schedule, cost, and scope, where a chart like the one you see on the screen here is common, looking at, for example, schedule performance index and cost performance index, and you classify projects according to those into quadrants and look at which ones are most likely to succeed. If you look at the same projects from a qualitative perspective, you can look at things like risk, opportunities, corporate goals, and so forth. And again, you have a chart on the screen here where you see same projects just classified in a different way, here according to NPV and predictability of success. At the end of the day, though, certain projects are selected for execution. And in this simple example, we've just selected the projects at the top of the screen. How might this look like kind of from a software perspective? Well, most companies have a project portfolio management system that allows you to see this and make this kind of analysis. And that's what we want to enable here in this initiative between Safran and SAP, and allow companies to better monitor their portfolio projects, ranking of projects based on risk, and to analyze project trends over time. So with that said, now that we've looked at the selection of projects and how we can impact that, let's look at the execution of projects with the goal of executing projects more flawlessly. Many companies today, perhaps your own, have a set of decentralized project applications. This ranges from the ERP systems, which in many cases are SAP, to a number of planning systems. You may have Safran, hopefully. You may have Primavera, you may have Microsoft Project, and of course Excel is always present in most companies. With a set of decentralized project applications like this, there's typically poor forecasting of cost, schedule, and resources. You get decentralized planning across work types, resulting in compounded project risk and focus on data gathering. And ultimately, this is a contributor to projects not achieving budget and schedule goals. What can we do about this? Well, at Safran, we decided to take a view of how to create a more integrated fit-for-purpose solution. And together with SAP, we developed, investor partners, we developed this product called Safran Integrator for SAP, which is intended to be a robust, fit-for-purpose solution to fully tie Safran and SAP together. And we'll get into a lot more detail on this in a few minutes. This enables a few benefits, such as risk analysis. We have risk built into Safran Project in a way that no other system have, which can allow increased project confidence. And of course, at the end of the day, having this type of integration and a single version of the truth hopefully will contribute to achieving budget and schedule goals for the project. So now let's take a different track here and see how we can get set up for Matthias's demo. Before we get to his demo, I just want to explain a few things. What we're trying to do with this integration and the combination of Safran and SAP is to impact a couple of different use cases or areas. Capital projects is very important for us. This integration and the systems that we have are designed to optimize capital projects. Same goes for maintenance and modifications, and the combination of those two, which are turnarounds, shutdown turnarounds and outages. If we take a bit more of a technology perspective, this is a representation of how these systems actually work together. So if you look at the screen here, you see SAP's project systems module, you see SAP's plant maintenance module or PM module, and you see Safran. So each of these modules have their own workflows, and we've designed this SAP integrator to able to exchange data between the PS module and Safran and the PM module, as you can see on the screen here. And also this bidirectional and unidirectional data exchange ultimately will feed up to SAP's Project Portfolio Management, or PPM module, for higher project visibility. We'll get back to this in a great more detail in a few minutes. Before we get to the actual analysis, I want to show you a typical scenario that you see in an oil company or an owner-operator, and how we can impact that from a Safran and SAP perspective. So first of all, like we discussed earlier, projects are typically selected in a project portfolio management type system process, and this is an example of how that might look. Once you've selected the projects that you are going to execute, the next step is to get them set up, typically an SAP PS module, for example, and have that data transferred across to the planning system, in this case, Safran Project. Once you have the planning system set up with the structure of the project, you go into more detailed planning mode in Safran Project, as you see here on the screen. Here you would enter activities, you would enter dependencies, resources, and so on, and build out the project. Once you've done that, within Safran Project, you have the ability to actually perform risk analysis, quantitative risk analysis, directly within the application. You can look at different confidence levels, you can look at various parameters, run with a Monte Carlo analysis, and see reporting from right within Safran Project, making this type of analysis much more accessible to the broader project community. Throughout this process, you also have the ability to report on risks. Here's an example of reporting qualitative and quantitative risks to a broader project community, people that are interested in seeing how the project performs. And then, of course, during the execution of the project, you have the ability to use Safran Project to follow the project from phase to phase and activity to activity, and see the performance of the project over time in a report like this, which is an S-curve that you can use to analyze the project and see performance and take actions and mitigating actions to improve the performance of the project. And then, of course, throughout this process, you have the ability to feed data back from the planning system, Safran Project, back into SAP. And this will be shown also later by Matthias. So without further ado, I'm going to switch here to Matthias, who's going to actually take you through a few more slides to set up for his actual demonstration.
Hello, everybody. So we've built this integration interface together with Safran and SAP, and this was a very exciting job. We've done this many times before, and the first questions we usually get when we approach customers is, can I go in both directions? And this is what this first slide is trying to convey. Yes, this is a bidirectional interface which is transferring project master data and project transactional data in both directions, but of course we see that SAP is definitely the master of records for very important things like work centers, as you see at the top, master records, budget and cost and material components. So this should stay in SAP and will be fed to Safran, but this is going one way. Next slide, please. We want to walk you through now through a little demo, which should be start with a project system. And this project system basically assumes that you have some kind of approval workflow after selecting your project from your portfolio management. And after you've created this template, you will, at the second step, detail out the project in Safran and then via the interface, synchronize it back to SAP. If you can move to the next slide, please. So this would be then the first look into this empty shell of a project here. It was created as an outcome of a workflow approval. You have estimated budget and estimated costs, as you can see here on the left side, and also there are some preliminary settings for the project definition. As you can see here, you have your budget profile, a planning profile, and so forth. And also you have some scheduling and plan settings like here, free scheduling and open scheduling. So the system is open so that an external system can drive the schedule. Next slide, please. On the other hand, now we can see our detailed CapEx project. We have here a branch for the CapEx activities and a branch for the OpEx activities. The activities are linked with each other, and you have a nice overview of the early start, finish date, and duration, and how the activities fit together. Next slide, please. In the middle, we have the interface, the Safran integrator, and this basically is a very easy setup. On the left side, you set up which project definition or which WBS element in a project you want to transfer data to. On the other side, you have the Safran project, and then the system can determine the differences that you see at the lower part. You can determine the differences between the two systems, and these are the objects which are to be synchronized. Next slide, please. The outcome then would be that we have the same view on the left side. Safran is updated, taking over the activity numbering from SAP. That means we combine the networks that are created with the activity number that is hosted by SAP, and on the other side, all the activities that have been in Safran are created in SAP. And also the networks and WBS elements which we have set up in Safran are created in SAP. Next slide, please. Now a quick walkthrough. The same works for the plant maintenance module. Basically, it's the same story, so you can move ahead with the slides. On one side, we have our first template work order in plant maintenance. It's released. We have two preliminary activities, which usually are at the beginning of a work order, maybe in this case, daily briefing with the scheduler and collect your tool set. Then you move to the other side, please, the next slide. We have detailed out a plant maintenance order with all the activities that are needed to do the job. In this case here, to replace a pump. You can connect all your activities and schedule your activities in Safran and put your resources and durations into the activities. And then in the next slide, it's basically the same story. Now you're connecting a work order or a selection of work orders with the Safran project. The integrator is determining the differences between the two systems. And then on the next slide, you can see how the both systems match up the data. Safran is updated with the work order number in combination with the operation number, and on the other side in SAP, we have all the operations created that were coming from Safran, and from now on the two systems can be exchanging data based on these activities who are linked together within the integrator. So I have to log on here to our demo environment. And what I have here on one side SAP, on the other side I have Safran, and let's quickly switch to the project system. And here I have the project which I've showed you in the slides. It's an empty project definition, basically created as an outcome of an approval workflow, and it has some preliminary settings. On the other side, here in Safran, I should have a project which is detailed out. So here you can see the different CapEx and OpEx activities, and they are structured with the outline code of Safran, which makes up the different WBS structure that would be reflected in SAP. So I basically have the same grouping that I have in SAP on the Safran side, and in here I could do my scheduling, and as you can see here, I can have actual dates, and I can have early start and finish dates, and also here the connection, the links between the activities. So what is next? Next is that after we've detailed out the projects in Safran, we basically have here for the integrator two transactions. One is for the configuration, and this is probably what you will never touch after we've set it up for you. And the second one is the actual Safran integrator, which can be used as a background job if some synchronization should happen overnight, but it can also be used during the day if you want to have a quick scheduling during the day that should be transferred from one system to the other. So let me open up now my project link for this CapEx project. And as you can see here, I'm referring on this side here to the WBS element and the project definition and project system. And on the other side, I'm referring to the Safran project, which I'm having here on this side. And the first thing the system does, and I do this now manually, I will compare the projects. And the system figured out, okay, all these activities here do exist in Safran, but they do not exist in SAP, and that's why it's naming here all the different activities which have not been created yet. And also at the very low end, I have here the WBS elements which should be created. Here are the activities, and here are the WBS. And the transfer direction at the moment is from Safran to SAP. That means Safran is at the moment our source of the data. Next step would be to synchronize the projects. And that is done. Now let's have a look into SAP if we have the data available. Sorry, I've closed the transaction. Now we'll open up the project again, and as you can see here, it's reflecting already the WBS structure, Y01121 for CapEx and the other one for OpEx. Let me make this here a little bit wider. So here we have our CapEx and our OpEx branch. And if I expand this, then you will see that the activities were moving over from Safran. The networks were created as a container for the activities, and this is matching up here with our structure and with activities that are in Safran. Now I will do a refresh in Safran. I think I can do this with F5. Yes, so F5 did the job. I was refreshing the screen in Safran from the database, and you can see that the activities have been at the same time going back, changed in Safran to match up the network number and the operation or the activity number in SAP. So both systems are now in synchronization, and the objects know each other, and we can exchange transactional data sitting on these activities from one system to the other system. Yeah, now let's have another scenario I would also like to show you this for plant maintenance. For that, we are going to go the other direction. I will open up a network, which is basically empty. So here I have in Safran now my empty project with nothing sitting in there, just one activity as my starting activity. On the other hand, in SAP, I will now switch to IW33 for work order. And as you can see here, I have a number of operations created in this work order, in total 64. It's not so much, but changing data, linking all these operations here in the IW32 that would be in this transaction would be a little bit cumbersome. So let's bring this over to Safran, the other way now around, and see how easy it then would be to manipulate the data in Safran. For that, I will have to choose a different project link because the project link is always defining what I want to sync and in which direction I want to sync. So here I have now a reference to this work order, and I reference specifically this Safran project, and here my transfer set, my direction of data flows from SAP work order to Safran project. Basically, it's the same story now. I compare the projects, it figures out the differences, and it figured out that I have here about 64 operations that need to be created in Safran. And the next step would be to synchronize this data. It's done. And when I now move over to Safran and click on F5 to refresh the screen, then all the operations show up here. And now it would be very easy for me, for instance, if I select all these operations to the very end and say link my operations together, and then it nicely details out here in the screen that all the operations are linked, and very quickly you have set up all your relationships and can easily manipulate here your data and your duration and whatever you want to do and bring those data back. So that concludes my my little presentation here, demonstrating you both ways, and going from Safran to SAP and going from SAP to Safran. And as you've seen that the activity numbers were also updated at the same time in the other system, if one system is the owner of the records, the data exchange is at the same time bidirectional. Thanks a lot for listening.
All right, we're now taking a look at how this actually works, and just to summarize a few points at the end here. The goal of this, again, is to create a fully integrated project controls environment, project controls and risk environment. And SAP being such a prevalent ERP system, we've seen that the opportunity here to make an improvement is great. And we created a tight integration with SAP. And the goal, of course, is to streamline business processes and minimize duplication and validation of data capabilities. You have seen here a flexible data mapping approach. We have a number of standard out-of-the-box integration points. You have the ability to also include additional integration fields. This is a flexible product in that regard. And of course, the usability is one of the key design criteria here. It's easy to initiate the integration both from the Safran side and the SAP side. And the goal is, at the end of the day, to be able to set up this and it should work. One last thing to mention is that together with SAP, we've also migrated Safran project to the HANA platform, and we have that certified on HANA, which improves performance greatly and also gives a number of analytics improvements as well. So with that said, I'm going to hand this back to Richard to close this off and take any questions.
Thank you very much, Lars. I appreciate that. Good presentations. So, everybody, just a reminder that if you have any questions, please, it's not too late, ask them now using the chat facility in the bottom right-hand side of your GoToMeeting console. We've had a few questions come through, though, during the presentation. If you do ask a question, other delegates won't see the question. It will just come to me so that I can ask it. So the first question, perhaps Lars, I'll address this to yourself, is this integration certified by SAP?
Yeah, Richard. We worked collaboratively with SAP throughout this development, and we're now in the process of having it certified by SAP. We anticipate having that complete in the kind of June timeframe.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Lars. Perhaps I could ask you again, which of the SAP modules could you confirm Safran Integrator works with?
Well, as you've seen on some of these slides, plant maintenance, project systems, also customer service for master and transactional data, and then that leverages SAP's internal integration to FI, CO, MM, PPM, and CPM solutions.
Okay, thank you, Lars. We've just had a question come through. Can we get access to the product specification to see which integration fields are available? Perhaps,
Yes.
Lars, are you able to answer that?
Yes, absolutely. We have a product specification that we actually have shared with a few of the customers on this call here already, and we're happy to share that with anybody that's considering the solution.